Let's talk about creating a functional wardrobe for the living historian 1850 style. Good day everyone, I'm Caitlin. I teach old-fashioned sewing skills on this channel, and today we're going to do something that we did before in the 1870s version back in May, which is go through, and yes, there's a cat in the background. I'm just going to talk over him because he will not shut up. I apologize. Yes, you. And the dog comes over now because she knows that I'm talking. So if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back to watch another video, and if you're new here, welcome. Hi. I'm so glad you're here. As a brief introduction, I've been sewing for over 20 years, and although I no longer work in museums, my husband works in museums, so I go over there a lot and do things instead of exhibits and that sort of thing. So I do have a museum experience as well. And of course I do keep a small collection of original garments, which I do study and then try to share the practical tips on how to create historic wardrobes with the channel. So this type of video is where I go through my wardrobe as a living historian, decide what I need to fix, what I have enough of, what I might need to sell because I have so much, and what I might need to add to the wardrobe to make it more functional for what I do. So I am calling this the 1850s capsule wardrobe, but fashion is hardly ever linear to where fashions change enough in 1850 and then change enough again in 1860 to make you give yourself a whole decade that way. So really, for the purposes of this video, we're going to look at about 1854 to about 1861 to maybe push it to 62. This is the time frame I used to do about 80% of my living history. I don't do as much anymore. And now, I used to do like super wealthy upper class, and now I do a little bit more middle class and lower class. So I know there are going to be some gaps that I'm going to have to talk through. But I also have a whole lot of excess clothing that I will need to get rid of because it just hasn't been used in 4 years, and if I have 6 silk dresses and I only ever wear one of them, why do I keep the other 5? Other than the fact they're pretty. And also I've been selling off pieces just randomly as I'm like, oh, I haven't worn this, so I'll just sell it, and then I think in my brain I still have it, and then I go look in my closet and I can't find it. Oh yeah, I sold that. So really I just need to have a list of what I actually have. That way I don't have any issues and don't think I've lost things. And again, also make sure that there are no gaps in the wardrobe that I need to fix. So my goal with this series, because I am going to make this a complete series on the channel, is to create a wardrobe that fits my needs from very working class all the way to the super wealthy for the times I do that. But to have as few pieces as possible to save on storage space. And this type of video, even though it's really for me and like my wardrobe, it will be helpful for those who are beginning living history and need to know about how to build their wardrobe and the things they might need or want, whether you're a volunteer or a paid costume historian. And honestly, it's really just evaluating about who you are portraying and whatever century you're doing and what you actually need practicality-wise. So I'm just a volunteer now, and although I am doing some sort of living history thing throughout most of the weekends on most of the year, they typically only range from 1 to 3 days at a time, so no way am I going to need a proper, real 1850s ladies wardrobe, right? Also, remember I'm working in a variety of social class structures within my wardrobe, so which is not a historical thing because someone who is super poor wouldn't be having a lace trimmed ball gown because they couldn't have afforded it. So my wardrobe is not accurate in terms of the designs of the clothing itself, and the clothing articles themselves it's just a practical wardrobe for what I do. And unless you live an actual 1850s lifestyle, which is probably not very many people, or unless you work at a living history site 7 days a week, you are likely not going to need all of the clothing of the woman of your time period would have owned. And I fall into that category, of course. So my goal is to have a wardrobe of as few pieces as possible, but still hit all the needs that I have. So I've created a lovely spreadsheet that if you saw the 1874 capsule wardrobe video, you have already seen, but I will show you the 1850s version at the end of the video. As a quick side note, any of the projects I talked about in this video that were made on the channel, I will link for you in the description if you would like to go watch. I will also put a link like down here showing, oh yeah, there is a video for this project, and then you can go to the description to find the link. I would put them up here for you, but YouTube only lets me link 5 videos to each video, and there's gonna be a lot more than 5. So just to save time, I'll put a few up here, up to the 5, but everything else is gonna be on the screen right here, and you can go down to the description and find that video if you're interested in the construction of that particular garment. Let's begin our discussion on footwear. Stockings so rarely changed throughout the 19th century, so my regular old cotton stockings that I use for most of my 19th century stuff will do just fine. I do have quite a few stockings. There are actually 11 pair that I can use for 1850 stuff, which is almost what a working class woman would have owned, because I see a lot of women stating that they own a dozen stockings, and I am 1 pair away from that. So I have 4 pair of regular cotton stockings. 2 pair are white, 1 pair is yellow, and 1 pair is brown. I also have 2 pairs of striped cotton stockings, because in the 1850s there was this fad for horizontally striped stockings, and so I do have 2 pair of that. I have 2 pairs of black silk stockings, 2 pairs of heavy wool stockings, and then a single pair of light wool stockings. So I'm very well supplied in stockings. For garters, I have about 5-ish pair of elastic garters, and I start seeing those in the 1850s. They're very simple to make. I based mine off an original pair of 1850s garters, and I use them for 1850s up to the very early 1880s. I do have a plain purple set, but most originals I've seen have been striped or figured in some way, and it's very hard to find 1-inch elastic nowadays that has stripes or figures. I found all of mine on Etsy though. I think they were vintage stock. And I'm sure the type of clasp has a name for it, but it's like a lock and key clasp where they fit together. And one end is a little round bit and the other end has like an open hole, and the round bit can kind of fit inside, and then it kind of just folds back and they hold together, if that makes sense whatsoever. You see belt buckles in this style, and this really does, the original looks very much like a very tiny belt buckle. So you can find a 1-inch belt buckle that is that shape. That would work great. The original pair also had wool pom-poms on either side, and I have not added those to mine yet. But it is my favorite style of garter. The knitted garters always seem to fall off, and I lose them all the time. And they would also be appropriate for this era, however. And the easiest way to make those is just, make your knitting about 1 inch wide, knit it as long as you want it. Some people like their garters to go around once. Some people like their garters to go around twice. I'm a twice person, so my garters have to be twice as long. And then you make sure that there's a little bit of extra. And then you just make a slit in your knitting, knit them up separately, put them back together at the top so you have a nice little slit. And then you can, and I know that probably did not make sense at all, but that's how you make knitted garters. For shoes, and this is an area that I really struggle, and I'm going to have to buy new shoes. I have 2 pair of fugui, which is I think how you pronounce that. But the soles have come off on both pairs. I repaired one, but only lasted for 1 event, so I don't feel like it's worth my time anymore to continue repairing them. I also have my sole coming out on my Amazon dry goods maroon leather boots, which I love. My husband says he can fix those, however, so I'm gonna let him do that. They have a nice 1-inch heel, which makes them more appropriate to post 1855 when we see a heel come back. So I tried not to wear them for the 1854 bit. I would like to get another pair of American dry goods boots, but in either black or brown this time, and probably get a size up, because my issue is my foot is very short. I have about a 6.5-inch length foot, but my width is like an 8 to an 8.5. So it's very hard to find shoes that actually fit me that don't slide off the heel. And really what I probably just need to end up doing is just stuffing toes and getting the larger size shoe. I also have a fun issue where I walk on the outsides of my feet, and so shoes wear out on the outside very, very quickly. I do have a pair of American Duchess black sateen slippers that I use for dancing and evening events. I love those. Those have lasted. They are the best American Duchess shoes I have ever owned. A lot of the other ones I find that they don't hold up to like lots of hardware and movement. These have held up through dancing, through absolute craziness. They're amazing. I love them. Been highly impressed with those. I also have a pair of Berlin wool work, or needlepoint to modern speak, slippers that I worked and made up myself, and those are appropriate for the 1850s and 1860s. Shoes of this time have the square toed, and it looks to me like the heel again comes back in fashion in about 55, so we see a lot of the later 1850s shoes with heels. So let's talk underpinnings and body linen now. So this is the time period where I can still get away with not wearing drawers, because I hate drawers. Although after the crinoline makes its debut in like 1856, it takes fashion like by storm. They are very much more common after that. And I know I've stated it on the channel before, but for those of you who are new, I have a sensory issue where I really cannot stand the feeling of fabric between my legs. So I will do just about anything to avoid wearing drawers. I will do it and suffer if I have to for historical accuracy most of the time. Sometimes it's just too much and I decide that it's not worth it. But 1850s is a time period I can mostly get away with it. If you're creating your own historical wardrobe, I do suggest at least 2 pairs of drawers. That way it gives you a pair to wear plus a spare. If you plan to wear them more frequently, you may plan for 1 a day every day you dress out per week, plus an extra set for emergencies. So I do have 3 pair of drawers for myself. I technically have 5, but 2 pair are on semi-permanent loan at the museum my husband curates, so those are unavailable to me until further notice. And I don't need 5 pair anyway, so I rarely bring more than 2 to an event. The only reason I have the 3rd pair is because it's for my wedding ensemble, and I wanted all my wedding underpinnings to match. So I went ahead and made a matching pair of drawers, and that's the only reason I have that pair. And so that is actually my nicest pair of drawers too. So those are my go-to for when I do super wealthy impressions where I do need to wear drawers. And then I have a white and embroidered set that is nice, but they're very old and worn. And then I have a plain set that's also very old and worn. So I do have very nice, but worn. So it could be an older set for the wealthy impression. It also could be my nice set for a lower class impression. And then I have the plain ones for the lower class impressions. But most of the time with the lower class impressions, I just don't wear them. I also do keep 3 chemises, and I do need to make another one because I do a lot of 3-day events where I actually want a new chemise or actually want to have an extra chemise for emergencies. I'm on the fence about it though, because technically I could just wear the one I wear half day Friday, wash it on Saturday, and have it dry again for emergencies. So I really don't need it. But I feel like I have a couple of chemises that are so close to giving out for good. It would maybe be a good thing to go ahead and get one done. That way, if one completely falls apart on me, I don't have to stress about sewing another one for an event. So I have added that 4 chemise to my project list, but it is very far down the list. And again, if I made the chemise, I definitely would make a matching pair of drawers, even though I don't need any more drawers, because I have this weird thing where I feel like I have to have matching sets of chemises and drawers, even though I know you don't. But I feel like I need to, so that's something that I just personally insist upon. And like 2 drawers, I do have 2 chemises that are on display. Those are not 2 that are part of the 3 I mentioned earlier. So technically I have 5, but I do have 2 also on display at the Pierce Museum, which is where Rhett curates. And one I put on display that I would actually use, but I don't need. And the other one I put on display I absolutely hate. It's tucked, but for some reason there's a gap right here because I've tucked the fabric and my bust is too big for it. And so it gapes, and even though the corset covers it, no one sees it, it still irritates me. So I don't wear that set anyway, so it might as well be on display. And the one chemise that I actually do wear, every time I wear it, I end up having to mend that thing. I did not sew it together very well the first time. It was one of the very first projects I ever hand stitched entirely, and I really had no idea what I was doing. Yeah, I had to mend it every time. So I figured that one and the one I don't like because it doesn't look good on me would be great sacrificial lambs to the museum display. And since we're on body linen, let's go ahead and discuss night dresses very quickly. I have 2, although I do find mid-19th century nightgowns extremely unflattering. I have a light cotton one that has tucks on it, and then a canton flannel one that's supposed to be braided, but I did 10 years ago, and I did yarn instead of braiding. But I do have now white cotton rayon soutache braid, and at some point we are going to redo that. Both night dresses have a matching nightcap as well. I don't find myself using the summer night dresses, although that is a thing. I just typically just wear one of my chemises. It's just easier and less packing. So let's move on to other undergarments. Firstly, my corset. I have a lovely shaped corset that I made with my wedding ensemble, which has white work scallops. All around the ends. It is getting slightly too big for me. I can close it all the way up now because I have lost weight since I made it, and it does need to be taken in. But technically it still fits right now, even though it can close all the way. If I lose anything else, I'm going to have to take it in. I technically do have my trusty blue sateen corset that I made so many years ago and has been remade 4 different times that is literally, again, falling apart. But it is on display under one of the dresses because I felt that it needed to be displayed and not worn to pieces. So it's on, again, it's not available to me, so I just wear the white corset. For petticoats, I do keep several. I have 2 plain white ones that I can use. One that's entirely hand stitched and another one that's machine stitched. And I have a fancy embroidered petticoat that is also on display, but it's easy to grab. If I did need it for an event, I'll just replace it with something else. I have a tucked white petticoat and then one that has white work edging to match the chemise and drawer set. And then I also have my wedding petticoat. I have a matching corset cover I have 4 corset covers as well, 3. I think I have 3 now. 3 corset covers as well that I almost never use. One of them is going to get cut down to an 1870s corset cover because I think I would use it more in that time period than I would in the 1850s. And then I also have a wool flannel petticoat for winter, and that's it for the lower petticoats, the one that go underneath the skirt supports. Do I need that many? Actually, no. 2 are on display, so I don't have those. And I made the machine sewn plain one first, and then I started doing like earlier time periods, 1830s, so I had to have a hand stitched one for that because they didn't have sewing machines back then. And so I technically could get rid of the machine stitched one, and technically it's in my modern wardrobe now because I wear it all the time, just every day underneath my normal skirts. So I guess technically we could not count that one, but it is still available, so I put it in the list. For skirt supports, I have my trusty corded petticoat, which is great for early 50s. And then I do have an early 60s crinoline shape, and then I just bought myself an obviously bad hoop that I'm going to make a covered hoop from for 1850s. Because hoop shapes change so rapidly, there's no way I'd be able to get it right 100% of the time. But I do need an early crinoline shape, and then I have my mid crinoline shape. I do have an elliptical. I also need another one for like 1863-ish to 1864-ish. I do need another one for that, but that's not in this video, so we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about the fact that I do need an 1850s crinoline, and I did buy a really cheap one off Amazon that should be cotton. I don't think it actually is, but it has the good hoop boning, and I'm going to do a video and try how to make a historically accurate covered hoop from the poor bad ones. So I purposely bought that so I could do that on the camera. In the underskirts category, I have my tucked underskirt on display, but I may take that one off and replace it with the embroidered one that I have because I would use the tucked one more. And I also have a fancy wrapper petticoat that has lace around the, or not lace, but edging around the edge, and then like a center front panel that, you know, when you wear a wrapper, it just ties at the waist and it opens and it reveals this very beautiful petticoat that I don't wear too much. I think I've only worn it once because it's the only time I've actually ever needed it, but I think I'll need it in December, so I'm glad I have it. I have 2 wool underskirts as well. One is on display, but I do have the brown one. And I do also have enough wool fabric to make another petticoat if I need to replace the one that's on display, but I can technically get the stuff off display if I absolutely have to. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult, and I'd have to replace it for the weekends I'm using it for the display, if that makes sense. So now we get to the fun part, dresses, which I have quite a few of, and I really don't need as many because I do a lot more working class for the late 1850s and early 60s. I do need a variety of clothes, but not as much as I have right now. So let's start with cotton dresses. I have a yoked cotton paisley dress, and I just mended that skirt yesterday. I've considered many times selling this dress. Although I love it, it is slightly too small for me, and I have no extra fabric to let out. And the fabric's been out of print for a while. But when I say this is Rhett's favorite dress of mine, yeah, I suggested selling, and his response told me that I basically stuck with this dress for quite a while because he was, "You're gonna sell my favorite dress?" I guess I won't be selling that dress, which is fine. I love the style. I just have other dresses that I love more. I also have a berry print cotton dress, which is one of my favorite dresses of this time period. It's also from an out of print fabric. And then there's my beloved 1850s blue plaid that I made 10 years ago. That's one of my favorite dresses ever, and it's also on display right now. Again, the dress is over 10 years old. It has pinholes all across the front now, and I've mended it and remade it so many times, but it is my favorite dress. I've never had another one that fits me as well for a gathered front dress. It's so flattering, and I love it. I made an exact copy of it a year or 2 ago of a tan and blue plaid. It was just not the same as the white and blue, so I ended up selling it just recently. I also have a cotton print set aside, which I'll likely put together at the end of this year or early next year. The only reason I'm making a second print dress is because I do not have any cotton dresses that fit over a small hoop, and I would like to have one. For wool dresses, I have a cotton wool blend dress that's working class, and that's about it for my wool dresses. I took my other 1850s wool dress and I cut it to make it an 1867 morning dress because it was black wool. And I do have a green plaid wool that's set aside for some sort of maternity outfit down the road. Either a sack and petticoat, like a drawstring dress or something of that sort. I'm not sure what I'll do exactly. I also have 2 or 3 dress lengths of wool in the stash that I could use for a 50s wool dress. I could use it for basically anything else. It's not set aside for anything particular. So if I need a wool dress for whatever reason, I do have fabric for that. For silk dresses, I have pared down my wardrobe to have only 3 silk dresses. And I don't even need that many, but I love each of them so much that I will never get rid of them. There's a tan jacquard, which is one of my 3 flounce skirt, I love that one so much. I love flounces and tiers, and so I will never get rid of that one just because it has 3 flounces. It makes me so happy. There's an evening bodice, and then it has an optional pelerine to take it to day wear. And it also has pagoda sleeves that are adjustable as well. And it's almost exactly copied off an original, which is another reason I like it. Then there's a lilac silk that was given to me by my friend Paula, and I have trimmed that all over in original Chantilly lace. I almost never wear that dress because of the original lace, but if I have a fancy indoor only event, it is my go-to. I love that dress. There's an evening bodice and a day bodice for that one. And then I do have a 2-tiered purple silk skirt, but I have not made the bodices yet. They're cut out, I just haven't cut them. I just haven't made it yet. And then for the eventual wool skirt and then all 3 silk dresses, I do have a black wool basque and then a white sheer basque that can give different looks as well. So basques for the 1850s are super awesome because all you had to do is the skirts, and they're not for cotton skirts, they're for silk, wool, and sheers. Basically fancier outfits, and then you can change out the top, give yourself a different look. And then there are my wrappers. I have a green serpentine wrapper for lower class, and I have plans for a black wrapper that has not been made up yet. So it is going to be made up in the next couple months though, because I will need it. So yes, I have a lot of outfits. I could probably pare it down to 2 cotton dresses, no wool ones, and a silk, and both wrappers. But I have reasons to keep all the dresses I have, so they're staying. I've gotten rid of 5 or 6 in this particular, no. I think I've got rid of 4 in this particular time period, so I had a lot more. I did get rid of some of them. So it's not like I didn't get rid of anything. I did pare down the collection. Counts for something. Now accessories, starting with aprons. I have a red plaid half apron, a gray pinner apron, a white pinner apron. There's also a maroon print apron. The plaid one is on display right now. I may change it out for the print one only because all the things I have on display that are outerwear are all plaids, and I feel like I need some prints just to show that aspect of life, not to make everyone think that all they had was plaids, because the silk dress is a plaid, the cotton dress is a plaid, the petticoat was a plaid, the apron's a plaid, everything shown was a plaid. I think one sunbonnet was a striped, but still. So I think I might put the maroon apron on display instead and just have my red plaid half apron. And that one anyway, it couldn't be used pre-1869 because it's a chain stitch machine, which is, well, I think they technically came out in 1858, but they wouldn't have been common yet. So I'm going to go ahead and use the hand-sewn red plaid apron for myself and just keep the maroon print apron on display. I have 5 pair of wrist length leather gloves. I have a white pair for dancing, a pink pair, a green pair, a brown pair, and a black pair. And that way I can match specific dresses or just provide variety. And they're the same gloves that work for 1830 all the way up through the late 1860s, and so they're very versatile and they don't take up a lot of space to store, so I'm okay with having several pair. I also have a lot of jewelry for this time period. I have 2 original brooches, 2 or 3 reproduction brooches from Beth Miller Hall, 3 metal belt buckles from Ensembles of the Past, 2 reproduction belt buckles from Beth Miller Hall, a reproduction pocket watch, a original pocket watch, an original black jet watch chain, a reproduction gold watch chain, and then I have so many earrings. I don't even know, but most of them can work for this time period that I have. I also have 2 sets of like fancy evening jewelry. I have a coral set, and the set includes a necklace, 2 bracelets, because they wore bracelets in sets, 1 on each wrist. They wouldn't just wear 1 bracelet. So necklace, 2 bracelets, a brooch, and a pair of earrings, and sometimes a little tiara make a set. So I have a coral set, and I have a pearl set, and I have stuff to make an amethyst set and a jet set. I just haven't done so yet. For belts, any of my reproduction, Petersham belting ribbon belts worked. I also have 2 velvet belts that I use. And parasols. I have not fully counted my parasols. I collect them, and so I have over 50, but they're not all from this era. I think most of them are though. But I have to also remember that a lot of those have the original covers, and their covers are in good condition, so I'm not taking them apart. So the ones that I have recovered, I think I only have a few. So for 1854, I have a blue striped parasol, and that's my go-to for early 50s. There's also a pink one that I recovered, but it does not have a finial because the finial broke off before I got it. It came to me like that. I just haven't fixed it yet. I haven't found a good finial that would match. For the mid-1850s, like 1855 to 1860, I have 2 striped English parasols. And then for the early 1860s, I have one, maybe two American made Marquise parasols. One is 1861. I had an 1861, but an 1860 version, but I think I sold that one. I have the 1861, and those are the ones that I could remember. There may be one or two other parasols that I don't remember. I haven't gone through the parasol boxes to see if there's more. I am going to start weeding out some of my parasols. I just have to make that decision because I love them so much. It's just a shame they don't get out much, especially the all original ones. Last summer, Pioneer Farms did an exhibit with my parasols, and so several of them went out and got to be on display. But that was only about a third of the collection, and it doesn't happen very often, so I feel like I probably need to let some go. For neckerchiefs, I have two plaid neckerchiefs, a linen neckerchief, and a cotton one. The cotton one is on display. And I need two more, probably another linen and a cotton one, because I use the white ones a lot more than I use the plaid ones. And I use them in lieu of collars on working dresses. I also have two fichus to change out the look of a dress and to spruce it up a bit. We also made those on the channel. I think I sold one. For headwear, I had the corded bonnet on display, and then my regular old 1850s and 60s slat bonnet that is going to need new slats soon, but I wear the bonnet all the time. Bonnets change. Fashion bonnets do change in style a lot during this 1854 to 1862 time frame. So I'm keeping several bonnets, but they don't go with every year. And I do try to keep a silk bonnet and a straw bonnet for each time period. So I have like a cooler weather bonnet and then a hot weather bonnet. So I have an open work straw and then a drawn silk bonnet for the 1852 to 1855 range. I have an 1855 to 1859 white straw bonnet that is on display. And I need a silk bonnet from that time period. So I don't technically have a fashion bonnet at all for that time frame right now that I have easy access to. And then I have a soft crown 1859 to 1861, maybe two, which is one of my favorite bonnets. And then I have a fully straw bonnet for that era as well. I also have a wool hood that matches a wool mantle that I have, and that's great for winter events. There are several evening headdresses we made on the channel. And then I have several ribbon hairnets that I have that I love, but I just don't wear. And I don't wear them because I find so many living historians wear them. And they're historically accurate, don't get me wrong whatsoever. They are historically accurate. They're just overdone right now. Living history is a very interesting hobby, and although we do talk about fashion and fads in the 19th century, living history as a hobby has fads too, that everyone just jumps on the train and all of a sudden we're oversaturated. So 15 years ago, it was like hats. Every living historian lady had to have a hat. And then 10 years ago, it was like sheer dresses. Everyone had to have sheer dresses, which, okay, I live in the South, so I understand the sheer dresses part. And right now, it's ribboned hairnets. Yes, they were a thing. Yes, many women had them. But when you look at photographic evidence, I would say maybe less than half of the women were wearing a ribboned hairnet. When you go to events now, it seems like almost every woman has one on. That's very disproportionate to history. And therefore, although I think they're cute and they really set off the face of the wearer, I choose not to wear one to help combat the percentages to get the event as a whole closer to period ideals. Sometimes I wonder if it's a subconscious thing because we still a lot of times believe that women in the 19th century had to have their hair covered all the time, and although that's been debunked several times, just by looking over photographs and paintings of the era, it's still ingrained in our brains, I think. And I do wonder if it seems more proper, and that's why a lot of living historian women are doing it. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to mention. I also have 3 morning caps, not with a U, so time of day morning caps for this time period. But I think only 2 of them, yeah, I only have 2, because one of them is 1860s. And finally, outerwear. I have 1 original red shawl that I can wear, 4 reproduction wool shawls that were for much of the 19th century. I have an 1857 wool jacket that we made on the channel. It has, I think, it has matching pelerine as well. There is a fur-lined mantle in velveteen. I also have a pink mantle that I'm selling, so I'm not putting that into my little document. That velveteen fur-lined mantle has a matching black muff. I also have an ermine muff. The lace collar that goes with, not the lace collar, the fur collar tippet thing that goes with it is more later 1860s, so I wouldn't use it for this time period, but the muff is perfectly acceptable. I do have yarn to make myself a 1855 crochet jacket from a Peterson's pattern. I think it was Peterson's, maybe it was Godey's. It was one of the 2. I hear you. What do you want? You're 2 hours away from having lunch, so you don't need lunch right now. I'm sorry. So crochet was not common for women pre-1865 or so. But I did find an original pattern. It is in crochet, however the crochet is done in a way to where it looks like knitting, which is a really cool technique. So it wasn't meant to look like crochet whatsoever. So it's on my list of things to do one day. And that is essentially my 1850s capsule wardrobe. It has a lot of pieces to it, a lot more than I think I really need in some areas, but I still wear them, so I feel like it's worth keeping them in the end. And a good fraction of it is on display right now, and I don't have full access. So that does count down the amount of pieces that I have to store. So before we go, I will share my 1854 to 1862 page in my Excel sheet with you. It's very simple, but it's very pretty and color-coded for my own personal use. Green means that the garment is done, ready to wear, and in good condition. Yellow can mean two things: one, that it's cut out and not made, or two, that it is made but it needs refitting, mending, or otherwise fixed before it can be worn. Red means that a project is not started or I need to purchase materials for it. And thankfully there's not a lot of red for this era because I already have most of it. I did add blue to this one as my it is on display color because I will forget which ones are on display and then freak out that I can't find my pieces. I like color coding this type of thing so I can easily see what needs to be worked on and if I have any gaps. So let's say I have an 1858 event, I can very quickly create myself a packing list from this chart and know exactly what pieces I need that need to be made or mended so I can get those done in plenty of time. It also helps keep me on track to make sure I'm not making another dress when I have perfectly good dresses, but let's say I need an 1850s crinoline or a wrapper for this event or a fancy wrapper. That way I know to get those done first before I work on any fun projects or more fun projects. Sometimes I like to go for the pretty fun projects instead of actually what needs to be accomplished, and this way I can keep myself focused. The changing of the colors from orange to red to the green makes me happy inside, and it's actually a really good way that I have found to keep myself on track and to actually want to do the projects that need to be done as opposed to whatever my brain wants to do instead. So yes, there's a lot more pieces than the 1870s wardrobe that we talked about last time, but again, I do a lot more of this era, and so it makes sense that I have more pieces. I also do more classes, and as opposed to the 1870s where I work mostly in the middle class and then working class, I do basically everything in the 1850s, so it makes sense I would have a few more pieces. And that's about it for my 1850s wardrobe. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next one.